snowed on CBeebies, wasn't it?
Clouds. I know. Lots of colourful birds flying all around us. Listen as they sing a beautiful bird chorus. Let's get an hit on and wrap up nice and cosy and see all the birds as they fly so gracefully. Lots of colourful birds flying all around us. Listen as they sing a beautiful bird chorus. Let's get a hit on and wrap up nice and cozy and see all the birds as they fly so gracefully. So come on, let's all have a lots together outside. Where adventure ends.
Musician of this.
It's called The Day We Landed.
I don't want the day we landed. I want Spidey.
Let's just see what happens. Oh, it's space loading. No credit.
I'd love to, Cosmo. Just give me a minute to make sure Doris has got us through this asteroid field.
Asteroid field, nearly cleared. And some news. We're now approaching our destination, Proxima.
We are? Cosmic!
A new planet to explore. And maybe we're going to find life on this one.
Life that can play games?
It's very unlikely that the life form
It's huge.
We need to make sure that
Can't see any other problems.
against it.
You're gonna get 4 trees then.
Well, I am, but not.
Oh, by the way, I'm live streaming.
closed. Some roads have also shut, including the A66 in County Durham, with National Highways advising to check ahead and plan for disruption. And the National Grid has reported several power outages in parts of the Midlands, South West and South Wales. Well, travel correspondent for The Independent, Simon Calder, joins me now to talk us through all of this. We meet again, Simon. This time we've switched to fog for snow. What have been the hardest hit airports today? A lot of disruption for a lot of people.
Very sadly, yes. I mean, this began last night at Bristol Airport, which, even though it was outside the amber weather warning area, was very much the subject of heavy snow, and the runway there closed for some hours. We saw 17 diversions as far away as Manchester and East Midlands, and once that had reopened, well, unfortunately, then attention turned to Manchester Airport. Now, this is one of the top 3 busiest airports in the UK. The last plane that got in at dawn this morning was from Barbados at 6:05. They were really lucky because there was then a whole procession of planes from the Caribbean, the US, Canada, from Asia, from the Middle East, all trying to land and all ending up in strange places. So Birmingham, if you ended up there, well, I'm sorry that you were diverted, but at least you're in the right country. Same with London Heathrow and Glasgow, which is where an Emirates Super Jumbo diverted to. But some passengers, can you believe, are in Dublin, others in Shannon in the west of Ireland, and the flight from Toronto went to Paris. So the aim is to get those planes back to Manchester because, of course, there's thousands of passengers waiting to fly out on their holidays. But unfortunately, I've already heard that the plane at Qatar Airways at Birmingham, the crew have gone out of hours, so everyone's going to be put on buses or trains to get back to Manchester. And elsewhere, as you say, Leeds, Bradford's still closed. Aer Lingus have cancelled all their Dublin and Belfast flights for the day. There was a diversion coming in from Romania, which went to Luton. And honestly, it's just been fairly random. We've had diversions in the early morning from Birmingham, which have gone to Manchester. And then in the reverse direction, Manchester flights went to Birmingham instead. And if you are waiting at one of the airports and you're only a couple of hours late, I would count that as a win because, for instance, at Manchester, we've had 36 flights cancelled on top of those diversions, and that's because the first wave of flights couldn't get out. EasyJet have cancelled a dozen flights to and from Manchester to places like Lisbon, Faro, to Sofia in Bulgaria. So it's a horrible morning for anybody who's trying to travel by air, and I'm afraid the railways aren't looking that much better either.
It's a really chaotic picture, isn't it, Simon? What always strikes me, though, is that I talk to the passengers, as you do, and they always say, we got there and there was no help, no one was waiting. It seems pretty disorganised.
Well, every pilot, of course, is very concerned about safety, and they will always make sure that they've got an alternate, well, in fact, several alternate airports that they can land at. But they've then, of course, got to have ground staff who've got plenty enough on already, thanks, because they're doing their normal, looking after their normal flights. You've got to refuel the planes if they're going to be flying onwards. And if you can't fly onwards, such as the Qatar Airways flight at Birmingham, you've then got to arrange coaches for people. So, yes, I think it is one of those things where the Civil Aviation Authority will need to take a look at this and how well was it handled and what airlines didn't have plans in place. Now, a lot of people are saying to me, why is Britain so rubbish at disruption? And my answer is that, well, actually, we don't get severe weather that often. And therefore, like anywhere, when it's actually snowing heavily, that's going to happen in Chicago, in Moscow, in airports where they have really severe winters. While it's actually snowing, we just perhaps could recover a little better from it.
Yeah, it's those action plans, isn't it? I think a lot of people we've been speaking to here at Sky News are frustrated with passengers being left to their own devices, being charged £500 for a taxi home, or having to stay in their accommodation for longer, or where they've travelled to for longer. So what are passengers' rights? Please bring us up to date, Simon. And of course, all importantly, it's that insurance, isn't it, usually?
Well, actually, under air passenger rights rules, you shouldn't even need to go near your travel insurance, although they will typically pay you maybe £50 for a day's delay getting back. So if you are one of the passengers who is, for instance, waiting to come back from the Algarve to Manchester and your flight with EasyJet has been cancelled, then it's quite straightforward. The airline has to get you back as soon as possible. If that means buying a flight on Ryanair or Jet2 for you, that's what they've got to do. Until they can get you to your destination, then they've got to find a hotel for you and provide meals as well. Now, that is okay if you're in somewhere like the Algarve, where there are plenty of hotels available. But of course, the numbers who are now going to find that they're at Manchester Airport, they can't get out today, that's going to put real pressure on hotels in the area. And I fear there will be tomorrow morning many thousands of people who are still not where they want to be. And that's on top of all the people who eventually today will get out on flights to the Gulf on Emirates or Etihad or Qatar Airways, but they will be heavily delayed and they'll miss their onward connections to Africa, to Asia and to Australasia. So it's a pretty glum Sunday, I'm afraid.
It is, and a glum holiday as well, isn't it, for many? Simon Calder, thanks very much indeed for bringing us up to date. Well, one of those passengers who isn't where he's meant to be is Rodri Morgan, along with his family. They were supposed to fly from Berlin Airport back to Manchester on Friday evening. They're still in Germany. Good morning to you, Rodri. Tell us about what happened to you, because it all came as a dramatic surprise, didn't it?
Yeah, we were due to return to Manchester on Friday evening, approximately about 10 o'clock. As we were getting ready to board, we were notified that the flight was cancelled. So yeah, we had to make our own way back up to collect our luggage and try to find out what was going on, really.
And because, if I'm right in thinking, you didn't actually have any snow where you were. It was obviously where you were due to fly to.
Yeah, we haven't really had any real notification of what was going on. We received notification that it was an airport curfew from our side in Berlin, which we're presuming is down to the weather. We saw a couple of gritters. There was a little bit of snow, a little bit of ice, but nothing major at all this side here. And it's a clear day today as well.
Yeah. Are you... it must be a mixture of relief that they're not flying when there's bad weather to keep you safe, but then, of course, it has a knock-on effect for your plans because this is the end of the Christmas holiday for you.
Yeah, we're due to fly out on Friday. We're meant to be back in the UK, obviously Friday night, Saturday morning. So yeah, we're just stuck here now in Berlin. So yeah, we've had to rearrange. We've had to rearrange support now from a hotel. The first night we've had to make our own arrangements for the next few days, and Ryanair sorted as a flight on Tuesday now, which obviously cuts into a working week.
Yeah, and you work as an A&E manager, and presumably your kids have to get to school?
Yeah. So it's the busiest time in A&E as well. So I'm missing probably the busiest time at the moment. And yeah, it's school and university plans, etc., have been hit at the moment.
Has this cost you a lot of money, or is Ryanair covering it for you right now? How's that working?
So the first night was covered kindly by Ryanair. We were due to check out at 12 o'clock, and obviously the flight has been arranged for Tuesday, given that we're flying back to Manchester. It's probably costing the regions of £900 extra that I've forked out. I'm hoping that obviously that will be reclaimed back, given that it's quite an expense, really.
Yeah, it is. And how are you all filling your time now until you come back? Are you grateful for the extra time, or you really want to get back?
Yeah, it's a mixed feeling, really, if I'm honest, given our holiday came to an end, we're all planned. When you've got in that mindset of we're coming home, you've got into that mindset. So we're just trying to relax, etc. We've done a few sightseeing trips, and we'll have to just, for the next couple of days now, just get our bearings, relax again a little bit more, and then keep our fingers crossed for our flights on Tuesday.
OK, we're going to leave it there. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to us, Rodri, from your hotel where you are stuck for a few more days in Berlin. Thanks very much indeed for speaking to Sky News.
Thank you.
Well, earlier I spoke to Adam Jury. He's a forecaster from WeatherQuest about what we can expect in the days to come.
It's quite a tricky situation, really, across most of the British Isles today. It's obviously snow started last night, and sort of 2 to 5 centimetres broadly fell over parts of the Midlands, and even sort of parts of Oxfordshire, sort of Suffolk and Essex area had some snowfall last night. But that's pretty much all melted now over at least central southern Britain. There's still some accumulations over high ground over Wales, sort of 5 or 6 centimetres there, but the obviously ongoing risk is the snow that's currently falling over northern Britain, and then a mixture of kind of where there's already been some snow. There's 16 centimetres been reported over parts of the Peak District on official stations, but we do have a little website where people can submit their own readings, and some areas of the Peak District have got to 22 centimetres in a few locations over there, and that's going to continue to fall as snow. But also there is a bit of a freezing rain risk as well in them areas, especially over parts of the Peak District where it's actually the precipitation type is rain, but obviously that's falling onto a frozen surface, so and snow cover, so that will create kind of quite a slushy mix and sort of quite a slippy mix of kind of snow, and then obviously potential for ice on some of the surfaces as well. So there'll be the areas, I think, in the short term that will be quite tricky for quite slippy conditions, basically parts of the Peak District and probably Vale of York, North Nottinghamshire and North Lincolnshire. Obviously, the ongoing snow risk is then for the Pennines and southern Scotland. That's just going to continue to snow through the rest of today and probably not going to stop till sometime during Monday morning. So by middle of Monday morning, some places of the Pennines, southern Scotland, and even to be honest, parts of Ireland as well, Central Ireland, could even see 20, perhaps 30 centimetres of snow by midday tomorrow, basically. So obviously that's an ongoing risk of snow as well. But where the snow has melted in parts of central southern England, then that's obviously where there's a bit more of a rain risk and potential flooding risk, to be honest, as well. So obviously parts of Manchester had, and northwest England had quite a bit of rain on over the New Year period. So already swollen rivers and basically further rainfall and further snow melt is going to be feeding into them rivers as well. So that's going to have a flood risk for them areas.
When you say freezing rain, Adam, what do you mean exactly? Is it as soon as the rain falls, it freezes itself?
Pretty much, yeah. So obviously where it's snowing, all the atmospheric column is below freezing, is sort of how to really kind of visualise it and describe it. So it's not really, it's all falling through as snow. Whereas we get this little transition period that's currently happening over kind of central northern England, then that's where the snow is starting as snow, say 4 kilometres up in the atmosphere, but then that's going through a layer that's about 5 or 6 degrees Celsius, so actually turning back to rain. But then because the surface hasn't warmed up yet, it's still around freezing. There's quite a lot of 0 to -1 Celsius at the surface, still in the Midlands, and basically that rain 2 kilometres up in the atmosphere is then obviously turning back to a supercooled water droplet, and as soon as that hits the surface, that then instantly freezes. Of course, the snow on the ground also helps with the freezing process. Doesn't often occur here in the UK. Usually happens over kind of Central Europe or sort of continental areas. Sort of quite a lot of the US has freezing rain a bit more often.
Let's take a look at some of today's other stories for you now. And the nearly week-long state funeral of former President Jimmy Carter has officially begun.
Cop stand behind me, and lots of people driving in and around the roads near the stadium. But there are people getting into slight difficulty. A few minutes before you just spoke to me, a few people having a bit of difficulties with wheel spin on the street corner. But just to give you a sense as to the fact that there is still some form of a match day atmosphere, a lot of people I've spoken to were confident that the game would go ahead, even when those statements were suggesting that it was still somewhat in the balance. And I think one of the things that benefited them was the fact that this is a 4:30 p.m. kickoff. But as you say, that statement does have one note of caution. They're telling people who are coming here to take extra care. And having driven across the northwest from near Manchester, across a couple of motorways to get here, some of the roads are still quite slushy, still quite icy. Some of the pavements are the same as well. So you do get a sense that even though the game will go ahead, people need to take heed. And we're just now approaching the end of an amber weather warning, but there's still a yellow weather warning in place covering where we are in Liverpool. And that yellow weather warning is for snow and ice. It's no longer snowing. If anything, there's a touch of rain as the pavements get more slippy. But I think lots of football fans would just be very happy, whether they're watching from home or coming to Anfield, very, very happy that this game will be going ahead.
Yeah, good news perhaps for Liverpool fans, maybe not Man U fans, Shingy. Clearly starting to thaw behind you there. Let's cross to Sheffield and Fraser Maud. Fraser, it's still incredibly snowy and cold where you are. Conditions remain dangerous there.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in the midst of the amber warning here. That amber weather warning has been slightly compressed. It's moved north slightly by the Met Office because of warmer weather coming in, and we're feeling the effects of that warmer air slightly. The temperatures here at the moment hovering round about zero, maybe just above. At the moment, any precipitation is in the form of a sort of light drizzle, not strong enough to be called rain just yet, but this is what it's been like for the past couple of hours. It means that there isn't any fresh snow landing on the roads. Most of the roads here, this is the Stocksbridge bypass heading up towards Huddersfield. That's now passable. That road is pretty clear. The volume of traffic has been just enough to activate the grit and make sure that the road is reasonably passable. The Woodhead Pass here behind me, that remains closed, as does the Snake Pass. So any Manchester or Manchester United or Liverpool fans from this part of the country wanting to head up to the northwest will find a few difficulties heading that way. We've seen some lane closures on the M1 as well. The road closure here has been in place since 10 o'clock last night. It was put in place as a preemptive measure. It started snowing round about 10:30, 11 o'clock last night, and that snowfall was pretty consistent throughout the night. We've seen the gritters and the snowplows heading up there. It looks from here as though it's reasonably clear, but some motorists have, unwisely decided to ignore the road closed sign. We've seen them head up towards the Woodhead Pass to try and get over up towards Greater Manchester, and then a few minutes later we've seen them come back with their tail between their legs because there are snow gates up there which are also closed. So this is still closed. The council, the highways authorities will let us know when it is reopened again, but with problems on the M1, problems here, the Snake Pass closed as well. It's pretty grim getting around and about here today. Obviously it's a Sunday, we're not expecting huge volumes of traffic, and that in a way is also a problem because, as I mentioned, the grit on the roads needs cars to activate it to start the thawing process. Feels as though the thawing process is happening here. There are still warnings for areas above 300 metres. Where we are here is pretty much 300 metres. So I think this is where the air gradient will change. Anything higher than here, what's falling as fine drizzle here may well be falling as snow on higher ground. So there are still those weather warnings in place, up to 30 centimetres potentially. A lot of minor roads still only passable with care, some of them not passable at all. The advice is always check before you travel and take care when you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Fraser Maud in Sheffield, Shingy Mararike at Anfield, where that game is going ahead. The breaking news in the last few minutes. Thanks very much indeed to you and your teams for braving the cold. Thank you. OK, well, Emma Birchley, as you can see, is in the studio with me now to take us through all the latest travel disruption caused by that weather. So, Emma, it's the airports that have been majorly disrupted as well as the roads.
Yeah, and things have been changing pretty fast. Now, in terms of Leeds Bradford Airport, they've really been struggling with the snow. There have been a number of cancellations this morning. Dublin, Belfast, Amsterdam flights that were due to arrive no longer doing so. There has been a statement from the airport. The runway's currently closed. Our teams are working hard to clear snow and minimise the impact on flight schedules. We're hoping to reopen the runway at 12 o'clock. We've obviously passed that, but haven't had any confirmation it's reopened. However, this is subject to change. Some morning departures have been rescheduled to this afternoon. Affected customers will be notified directly by their airline. And the snow's also having an impact on safety around the terminal. The shuttle bus service, for example, has had to be postponed. It means people are having to trek with their suitcases in the grim old weather to and from the terminal and the car park. So that's Leeds Bradford. Manchester Airport back up and running now, but 15 planes had to be diverted. Many of them were long-haul flights, so from the US, Canada, Hong Kong, and they were diverted to places like Birmingham, Glasgow, Heathrow, even Paris. There was a statement from Manchester Airport. Our runways are now open, but as a result of the earlier closure, some departures and arrivals may still experience delays as our teams work to de-ice aircraft and clear walkways. Liverpool John Lennon Airport had problems. The runway was closed. That was due to reopen at 10:15. No particular update, but things looking a bit better there, although there are delays, so check. And then overnight, Bristol really struggled. The runway was closed between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. last night. Flights were diverted all over the place. And once reopened, the airport made it clear that the problem you have is that aircraft ends up in the wrong place, also crew. Not only that, obviously passengers ending up in the wrong place. And we know that some that were due to fly from Tenerife to Birmingham actually ended up in Bristol on an EasyJet flight. They had to pay £500, apparently, in taxes to get back where they should have been. And we spoke overnight to Emma, who'd been waiting for more than 3 hours for her bags. She'd flown in from Gran Canaria in the early hours. It had been delayed. The baggage staff were no longer on shift. They had to wait till the morning for those staff to come back online. There was no food, there was no drink. The vending machines were empty, so it was all pretty grim. EasyJet have released a statement in relation to that. They say we made arrangements for passengers on diverted flights to continue by road where possible. Any customers whose flights have been cancelled have been notified and provided with the option to transfer to an alternative flight free of charge or receive a refund. And then finally, Stansted Airport, we'll have a look at that. We had pictures that were sent in by a passenger who'd flown into Stansted overnight, which showed just how much snow there was on the runway. Now, flights, they did end up again being diverted. Edinburgh, Dublin, even Cologne, flights heading there. I mean, this is major disruption. And the problem is, as we know, people then miss connecting flights, people end up in the wrong place. So the advice, absolutely, is to make sure you check with your airline before you leave home so you don't have a wasted journey.
Yeah, stay in the warm and stay safe. Emma, thank you. Thanks very much. OK, well, Sky meteorologist Kirsty McCabe is also following all of this for us, of course. She joins me now where the snow and ice is starting to melt where you are, of course, Kirsty. That's also a problem. How long do you expect this weather front to last?
The weather is going to stay pretty disruptive right through the rest of today and even into tomorrow. Today is still this awkward mix of sleet, snow, ice and rain. Milder air has come into the south and that means some heavy rain in places across southern parts of England, and with some snow melt we're also going to see some flooding in places and certainly plenty of standing water and spray on the roads. Further north, we're still in the colder air and there's still more heavy snow to come. We still have some weather warnings in place for the snow and the ice. Still an amber warning in place until this evening across parts of northern England, the Pennines and even into southern Scotland, still seeing some heavy snow around. We've got yellow snow and ice warnings too for the snow and the ice across much of Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland, and across Wales and southern England. Here we've got the rain. And there's a bit of a battleground going on where we've got the milder air meeting the colder air. We've also got an issue with the possibility of freezing rain, and that's where we see supercooled water. So the rain still in liquid form, but this below freezing is going to freeze on impact when it meets these cold surfaces. So that leaves a thin layer of ice and is really quite treacherous. So still the hazards with sleet, snow, freezing rain and ice to come through the rest of today. The wet weather, the wintry mix will finally pull away to the east as we go through the night tonight into tomorrow. And then we set up this plunge of cold northerly winds. It's going to be a really quite windy spell of weather, in fact, as we go into tomorrow. Down that east coast, I think it'll be really quite bracing. So some wind chill as the Arctic air returns from the north. And through next week, we're going to see temperatures starting to get lower and lower as we go through the nights. So the winds do eventually ease, but the temperatures will drop down to -18 over the snowfields over northern England and parts of Scotland. So it is going to be a really cold outlook next week. So though it's briefly milder in the south today, the cold is returning with a vengeance as we go through next week.
Kirsty, thanks very much indeed for that. Well, breaking news update for you on this weather front story. And we have now heard from Leeds Bradford Airport, which still remains closed due to safety conditions and that snowfall. They've released a statement saying due to the ongoing heavy snowfall, the runway at Leeds Bradford remains closed until further notice. We were, of course, you remember we were supposed to hear from them at midday. They said they might reopen, but they're not going to. It says our teams are working hard to reopen it as soon as it is safe to do so. Customers are advised to contact their airline for the most up-to-date information regarding their flight before travelling to the airport. Interestingly, they say that they're also having to control who goes in and out of the departure area. It says due to the high volume of customers in the departure lounge, we may need to temporarily restrict access through security. This will be managed in flight priority order. So if you are already there, they're going to let people in through departures in terms of the flight timings. Our operations team will be on hand to assist. Please listen out for announcements within the terminal. It goes on. It says that they will provide the next update at 2 o'clock. We will, of course, bring that to you too here on Sky News. And it's thanking the customers for their ongoing patience and understanding, and to their teams on the ground working hard to minimise the impact on schedules. But safety is obviously their primary concern. And because of the heavy snowfall, Leeds Bradford Airport remains closed. In other news, a senior government for us.
The weather is set to still bring more disruption as we head through the evening, overnight and into tomorrow. We've got this awkward mix of rain, sleet, snow, ice, freezing rain. That's still going to affect many of us, so still some weather warnings in force. The greatest snow risk across parts of northern England into southern Scotland. We've still got some snow across the far north of Scotland in some wintry showers here, and also some wintry showers still affecting parts of Northern Ireland, and an ice risk, of course, where we have these wintry showers when the temperatures start dropping. Further south, it's been really quite messy. Some of the earlier snow turning to rain, but then we'll see some iciness as we go through the night tonight. In the far south, it's much milder now, but it's not going to last. So milder for now, with a lot of rain around and some standing water and spray in the roads, and possibly even a risk of flooding across parts of Wales, for example, where we've got the thawing snow and the rain. But as we go into tonight and then through tomorrow, we start to see a return of these cold northerly winds coming from the Arctic, and that means temperatures are going to be dropping. So initially, quite a raw wind, means a bit of a wind chill, some very cold conditions as we work our way through Monday. The rain, sleet and snow clearing away. Things should brighten up midweek, but the nights will be very cold indeed, down to -18 over the snowfields over parts of northern England and Scotland. So some very cold nights to come. Wintry weather not quite done with us yet. Keeping an eye on the weather for Wednesday, could be some more sleet and snow pushing into the south. Certainly one to watch.
Thanks, Kirsty. OK, well, the weather's also causing havoc in the United States as snow, ice and plunging temperatures across numerous states there. States in central parts of the US are experiencing a winter storm. Gosh, extraordinary pictures there, which is feared could be the worst in a decade. Icy roads and snow are causing accidents as authorities battle to grit busy highways. Around 60 million people are under weather alerts across 30 states, with the National Weather Service warning that severe thunderstorms with the possibility of tornadoes and hail are also a possibility in some regions. It's predicted to make its way eastwards over the coming days and as far south as Florida, with temperatures plunging by 25 degrees in some areas. Now back to the UK, where a senior government minister has told Sky News that the government is committed to implementing the recommendations of an independent inquiry into child sexual exploitation, where